Welcome to another episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast, where we want to educate and empower women to live your retirement on your terms. I'm your host, Eric Blake. Today, we have another Q&A episode. I have had some great questions from our listeners. Also, a few questions from our Facebook group, the Simply Retirement Podcast Facebook group. Let me get that out. So you can find that on Facebook, also on our Facebook page, where you can find me at Eric Blake CFP. That's my handle across all social media platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I can't think of any of the others, but that should get you where you want to be. We've got a few questions on Social Security and taxes. Also, an interesting question on working in retirement that I'm going to talk about. Before we get to that, I want to bring on Wendy McConnell. Wendy, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
I am good. Thank you once again for joining me, helping me get through these questions. So before we get to those, I want to share just a few thoughts on some of the recently announced changes to Social Security and applying for Social Security benefits. There seems to be a lot of confusion out there. Before that, just to make sure that if you do have a question, a topic suggestion, anything like that, you can go to www.thesimply.retirementpodcast.com/ask-Eric. Back to Social Security. So as we are recording this, we are just a few days from this big deadline everybody's worried about, March 31st. And then this episode will come out after that, but hopefully this will still be valuable. But some new requirements around identity verification. And specifically, if you're applying for benefits or if you're changing your direct deposit account, those are the two big ones. That on March 31st, there's going to be some new identity requirements where if you cannot go through the online process, you may actually have to go into a local branch, local Social Security office. Okay. So but it doesn't mean you have to go there's no physical appointments that are required to apply for benefits. So you want to make sure you understand what your situation is. So it's not going to be required to go in person to apply for your own benefits or even to change your direct deposit. That's one of the things that has changed in there. It used to take 30 days. Basically, it was a 30-day hold if you were going to change your bank account for your direct deposit. So that's going to be sped up quite a bit. Basically, they can do it in one day. But what you're going to have to do is make sure that you go online, you set up your My Social Security account. And that's either going to be through there's a couple of different options depending on what you prefer, but there's the login.gov. And then there's also the ID.me. Both of those can be used. You don't need both. You can use one or the other. If you happen to already have one of those set up, you can go and use that. If you don't, you want to go ahead and try to get that done because that's where that verification process is going to happen. If for some reason you can't verify your identity, that's when you're going to have to go into a local office. So just to make sure, there's a lot of confusion around, do I have to go into a local office to apply for benefits? Now, the one thing, because this is for our audience, obviously we're talking about women who have lost a husband or lost a spouse, and you're applying for spousal benefits, or you're not spousal, I'm sorry, survivor benefits. Survivor benefits have always had to be done by appointment. You've always had to do that. So that's not going to necessarily change with this. Now, one of the other things they've made available, I want to make sure I get this number right. So the agency, Social Security Administration, recommends calling to request an in-person appointment to begin and complete a claim in one interaction. So for some reason, you can't verify your identity online and you try to apply for benefits, just schedule an appointment to get both of those done. Go in, get your identity verified, get your application process started. But that phone number you want to call is 800-772-1213. So that's a number. And if that number rings a bell at all for some of our past episodes on the Social Security Fairness Act, that was also the number that you could use and say Social Security Fairness Act if you were going through a process, if you were impacted by that as well. So that number, that's a very important number for a lot of things. So make sure you take a note of that. And actually, we'll put that in the show notes. We'll put the links to the different, there's been a lot of announcements, different things from the Social Security Administration, and we'll share all those to make sure you can track all this information down.
All right.
How was that?
That was a lot and a mouthful, but you did it.
Well, again, a lot of confusion. Now, also, before I forget, if you set up a login on the Social Security website prior to 2021, you need to go back in and set up a new login through one of those two options I gave you, the login.gov or the ID.me. Again, you don't have to do both, one or the other. But if it's been a while since you set up just a traditional type of login, you probably want to go ahead and do that. And even if you're unsure, probably want to go ahead and make sure you've got one of those accounts set up, the login.gov or the ID.me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So how about some listener questions?
All right. So the first question is from Lori. She says, I'm planning to retire at the end of the school year next year. I will be 62 at that time. I'm wondering if I should go ahead and take survivor's benefits now or take spousal benefits. I think the spousal benefits would be more. I'm thinking I should wait until after I retire to start because of the deductions that they take out for making over the maximum income. If I wait until I retire, then my income would be less, so the deduction should be less. Am I correct on the survivor and spousal benefits?
So this is one I actually emailed a listener on this to try to clarify, because I think there's some confusion around survivor and spousal. So in her mind, she's referring to spousal. I don't know which of these actually she might be talking about, and I didn't get a response. So I'm going to kind of answer it as best as I can. But a couple of things to think about is, if you're talking about survivor benefits, number one, we're going to go with the assumption that the spouse has passed away. And more likely than not, that is actually going to be the higher benefit. So the survivor benefit is 100% of what the deceased spouse was earning at the time, or what they would have been eligible for at their full retirement age. So in most cases, that's going to be the higher of the twos. Because again, remember, spousal benefits is up to 50% of your spouse's full retirement age benefit if they are still alive. So I didn't get clarification on what the circumstances are. So in that case, you're just going to make the assumption that, again, that we're talking survivor benefits is most likely going to be the larger of the benefits that are available to you. Because again, we're assuming, based on being a teacher or being in education in some form or fashion, that you're not going to be eligible on your own. And that's, again, part of the Social Security Fairness Act, and we'll go into all the details of that. But then the next part of what she's talking about is, first, she'll be 62 at that time. Now, technically, if we are truly talking about survivor benefits, she could have applied as early as 60, but she is still working. So there's a couple of things she's worried about there. And that is, if she's making too much money, does she lose benefits because of that? Now, here's a really key point that people need to know about when they're talking about Social Security planning. And actually, I'm going to point out a couple of things. But the first one she's worried about is, well, if I'm working and I start Social Security, is it going to get reduced because I'm going above the earnings test? Now, here's a key thing to be aware of, is that earnings test in the first year you apply, it is a monthly benefit. It's a monthly earnings test rather than an annual earnings test. So that 23,000 or so, divide that by 12. And it doesn't actually start until you start receiving your benefit. So if she waits until she's actually retired, let's say she's 62, she retires day one of her 62nd birthday and then starts Social Security, she doesn't have to worry about the earnings test at all, because it is a monthly amount. So she's thinking, well, if a lot of times teachers will retire maybe in August. So school year starts in September. She retires in August before that school year starts. She's thinking, well, I've earned 8 months of income. If I start Social Security, it's going to get reduced because I had almost 2/3 of a year. Which in reality, it doesn't start until September. So it's a monthly earnings test. So instead of having to worry about anything, if she starts September 1, she's fully retired, she's not she's not having any employment income, and her Social Security starts, there is no worry about the earnings test because it's a monthly amount and it starts when you start receiving the benefits.
All right.
The other thing, and she didn't ask about this, but I always want to point it out, is again, keeping in mind, if she does start at 62, whichever benefit she's eligible for, spousal, survivor, whatever it might be, just keep in mind that at 62, it is going to be reduced from what your maximum benefit could have been at full retirement age, which if she's 62, she's born in 1963 or so. So again, her full retirement age is going to be 67. So that would be the max benefit, especially if we're talking survivor or spousal benefits. So just keep that in mind, that it is going to be reduced quite a bit if you're talking about 5 years earlier than your full retirement age.
Okay. All right. So next question from the Simply Retirement Facebook group. I have a question on Social Security. I retired at the age of 62 with a reduced pension due to medical concerns. I recently applied for spousal benefits and was denied. I was told if I had waited to FRA my benefit, am I saying that right?
Full retirement age, yeah.
Okay.
Wait until full retirement age, I think is what she's saying.
All right. So that would be more than half what my spouse's is. So they determine the amount of what would have been, not what is. Is this correct?
Yeah, so it's one of those, it's a tricky circumstances where if you given enough time, if you wait until that full retirement age, your spousal benefit will continue to grow. And technically there's basically a cap. When you think about the spousal benefit, let's start with that one. So the maximum you can receive is 50% of your spouse's full retirement age benefit. That's the max. The earlier you start, it's going to be reduced. So if you start at 62, which is the earliest you could start it, it's going to be reduced to basically about 32.5%. So what it sounds like is what she's being advised on is in this particular case, her benefit is enough that by the time she reaches full retirement age, it's going to exceed what her spousal benefit would have been. So she's actually probably better off under the circumstances of waiting anyway. But that's what it sounds like she's being advised on that. And you could apply without knowing the exact numbers. I couldn't really give a full recommendation or full analysis on which is going to be best for her. But that's what it sounds like. She's in a situation where basically if she continues to wait a little bit, her 100% of hers is going to exceed 50% of his.
Okay. Also from the Facebook page, I'm a retired teacher who paid into Social Security to get my 40 credits. I've been receiving my monthly check for the reduced amount since I am drawing a teacher pension. Can I go back and apply for my ex-husband's benefits since his amount would be greater than mine? I was married for 26 years. Are you allowed to reapply after you have already been receiving benefits?
So the answer would be yes. Again, actually with that caveat that we assume that 50% of his is greater than 100% of hers. Now, one of the couple of key variables that we don't have any specifics on is what the ages are. So obviously she has to be at least 62. And if she is, it sounds like she's applied for her own benefits. So it's more likely she's over 62, but we don't know if she's full retirement age, if she's beyond age 70. We don't know some of those factors. But then if she was married for 26 years, again, the cutoff is 10. So you got to be married at least 10 years to your former spouse to be eligible for spousal benefits. But yes, she would want to actually go in and apply for that if she never applied before. Go ahead and apply, go through that process of applying for spousal benefits. And she's not going to get the retroactive benefits. Now, she may be eligible for retroactive benefits, again, based on the Social Security Fairness Act, retroactive back to January 2024. So more than likely, she's going to, number one, she's going to get a lump sum payment based on her own record. She's going to get an increased benefit, monthly benefit based on her own record since she has the 40 credits. Now, the big question is 100% of hers more or less than 50% of his? And if it sounds like from what she's indicating is that is the case, in which case, yes, now she would want to go ahead and apply for spousal benefits or ex-spousal benefits in this case so that she can get that increase. But just be aware it's not going to be retroactive to anything from the past. It's going to start whenever she applies. Now, we talked about this a couple episodes back. I don't recall the exact episode, but again, she's not eligible for the full retroactive benefits back to January 2024 based on the Fairness Act, Social Security Fairness Act. But if she's over full retirement age, she might be able to go back and request that 6th month retroactive payment to get a little bit of a bump from that.
Okay. I have a question from producer Wendy.
Producer Wendy, go for it.
Okay. So you can start receiving your benefits early at the age of 62. Does that number change when your full retirement age is 67? Is that number only for those who retired full age at 65?
62 is always the earliest age you can apply for retirement benefits.
Okay. So even if my official retirement age is 67, I still have the option of going early at 62.
Right. It just means your reduction is different. So the reduction from whatever your full retirement age benefit is going to be more or less depending on whether your full retirement age was 66 and 6 months, 67. So the reduction amount will change based on what your full retirement age is, but you can always apply as early as 62.
Good to know. Okay. So from the Facebook page, I have been with my common law husband for 12 years. If we do not get married, am I entitled to his Social Security when he passes?
So this is a great question, and it's actually more frequent than what many people might think. But here's the biggest key. It is state dependent. Does your state recognize common law or do they not? Here in Texas, they do. Again, other variables may need to be, we don't know, the 100% of what's going on here, but in Texas, common law is recognized. You could be eligible for survivor benefits based on a common law marriage. An example, like we have clients in North Carolina. North Carolina does not recognize common law marriage. So you are not eligible. We actually have clients in that same, our planning every year is we're evaluating her. She's a little bit younger and we're looking at, okay, what makes sense for her, knowing that if something happens to him, she's still only going to be getting her own benefits. She's not going to be eligible for survivor benefits. So that has gone into our planning conversations is how do we draw income up until the point she's ready to start turning on her own Social Security, because whatever hers is what she's going to be getting the rest of her life. So in North Carolina, they don't recognize it. So she's not going to get anything, no survivor benefits. So you want to go to your state, go to your local office, contact your local office and say, does our state recognize common law marriage? And that's going to most likely give you your answer.
Yeah. Got some homework to do.
That is right. There's always homework.
Oh, yeah. I know, my favorite. So from the Facebook page, as a widowed retired educator, I was denied benefits in 2014 when I was 65. I still have the letter with the amount I qualified for, but that it was offset by my pension. Do I have to apply again, or do I just wait patiently for something to happen? I'm guessing that's not the answer.
Patiently may not be the right terminology, but actually the answer to her question is based on the guidance that has been provided. She does not need to do anything. She needs to patiently wait. That is actually the correct answer.
Wow, I would have never guessed that in a million years.
So basically what we're talking about is we're talking in this case, it's the Social Security Fairness Act, but it's the GPO component, the government pension offset. So basically, again, just to kind of go through how this works is if you're eligible for a pension under non-Social Security covered work, which she is, they take 2/3 of whatever your pension amount is and subtract that from whatever survivor benefit you would have been eligible for. So basically what this is indicating is that when she applied in 2014, 2/3 of her pension basically wiped out whatever she would have been eligible for as a survivor benefit. The key is that she did apply. And this is one that I did talk about in a couple episodes ago, where unfortunately so many were actually advised by the Social Security Administration not to apply because they wouldn't have gotten anything. She fortunately did apply. I don't know that she would need that letter, but the fact that she has it is just one more tool in the toolbox to make sure that she's going to get what she's eligible for. But again, based on Social Security Fairness Act, because she applied, not only is she now going to be eligible without necessarily having to reapply, I would always contact them and say, okay, here's what my situation is. I want to get clarity on this. But because she did apply and was denied, she is going to be eligible for those retroactive benefits. So she's going to get a lump sum based on benefits she should have been receiving since January of 2024. So that's going to be huge. So not only is she going to get additional income based on the survivor benefit, she's going to get a lump sum as well.
Okay. This is why I asked the questions and you answered it, right? So the next question from the Facebook page is, when my husband passed, I was 50 and a half years old. I went to Social Security with my 17-year-old daughter to set up her benefits, and I asked if I would receive any. I was told no, just the small funeral amount everyone gets. But when I retired, they gave it to me. Why not back then?
Unfortunately, this is just one of those little details that they look at it as this is survivor insurance. That's, again, even if you look at the SSI, that all these different terms. So that's really where it becomes tricky. And unfortunately, they look at it as a retirement benefit, that if you live too long, you're going to have something coming in. So based on the age, if you've got a child that you're caring for, and if they're above a certain age, only they're going to be eligible for some period of time. If they're below a certain age, if it's 16, she might have actually been eligible for a caregiver benefit as well. But under these specific details that she's provided, she wouldn't have been eligible for the caregiver benefit. Now, I won't get into the details, the nuts and bolts of family maximums, but those are also things that have to be considered as well. There are some limitations as far as how much can actually be received by one single family. If you've got children receiving benefits and you've got a caregiver benefit coming in, some of those factors. But unfortunately, that's just the way it was. The system was designed, is to provide something as you're getting older, not specifically during those caregiver years once your child has reached a certain age.
All right. So from the Facebook page also, I have a concern about how filing income taxes affect a surviving wife. My husband passed away while we still had a mortgage. I am now paying that. Yes, I am receiving his Social Security, but I am now single.
So this is basically a component of what is called the widow's penalty. And so just to kind of give you a simplified version of this, and this is definitely, I've got in the works very soon. We're going to do a series of podcast episodes on this topic because I think it would be helpful to do an episode just breaking down what the widow's penalty is, but also then within those individual components like Social Security, like taxes, income planning, within those different components, what are some of the strategies that you either can utilize if this is affecting you, or ideally, what are some of the things you could be doing prior to this becoming an impact on you? So prior to a spouse passing. But basically, the simplified version of this is the widow's penalty means that you've got one spouse that passes. Number one, you're going to lose one of those Social Security benefits. So, think about how the Social Security system was designed. When it first started back in the 30s, for the most part, it was the husband was working, the wife wasn't. That's where the spousal benefit comes in. So you can get the non-working spouse could get 50% of the working spouse's benefit. And that's pretty much, that is how a lot of families worked. Today, a lot of spouses you got two income families throughout their working years, and now they're basically both getting full Social Security benefits. One of those goes away, and that can be significant on the family's cash flow. And especially if you're a surviving spouse, that can impact your income quite a bit. But if you say, and I'll just give you some easy math, let's say you've got maybe $10,000 a month in total income from IRA distributions, maybe some pensions in there, Social Security, so on and so forth. Well, if I say, okay, I've got $10,000 in total, 3,000 of that was his benefit, 3,000 of that was her benefit for Social Security purposes. Well, $10,000 subtract 3 for his, now I'm at 7. Well, your income got reduced by about 30%, but your tax brackets got cut in half because instead of being able to file jointly, as she indicates, now you're filing single. So your income didn't change a whole lot. It did change by some, and $3,000 can actually be significant. So your income got cut by about 30%, but your tax bracket got cut by 50%. So you could have gotten a reduction in income, but actually still be in a higher tax bracket. So that's what basically she's thinking about, what she's worried about, and what she sounds like she's dealing with is basically what we refer to as the widow's penalty. And there's the Social Security factor where you lose one of those Social Security benefits. There's obviously, I just talked about the tax implications being your Social Security, your tax brackets getting cut in half. There's also things like, if your income's high enough, it might push you into what are called IRMA surcharges. You might be paying more for Medicare, which is what that IRMA indicates. So again, your income may not have changed. It actually may have gone down, but if it's high enough, it might push you into a higher Medicare Part B threshold. So these are all the different things that, and unfortunately we had a client that husband recently passed away. She remembered these conversations that we had. You said, I think I remember you saying that if something happens to one of us, we might actually end up paying more in taxes. And that's really where that widow's penalty, the concept itself, understanding it, but also what are the strategies? What are some of the things you can do to prepare in advance? Or even on the back end, what are some of the things you need to be aware of? And actually being more proactive on the front end is always going to be better, whether we're talking about diversifying your portfolio from a tax standpoint. Should you be thinking about Roth conversions today versus later? Because one of the things, and I touched on some of these other areas, require distributions. So you think about, if it's a husband and wife, and let's say they both have $500,000 in their IRA accounts. Well, when they get to RMD age, each of them have their own RMD. Well, now husband passes away and now wife has $1 million in hers. She's taking the same RMD amount as they both would have taken together, but now she's in a higher tax bracket.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So that's really where the planning comes in. And again, looking at some more the advanced plan. This is not something you can do. Again, I hate to say that it's not something you can do in the middle of it, or a lot of times it's nothing you can do after it. You got to be proactive now, saying, okay, if I retire at 62 and I don't start Social Security until 67, within those 5 years, should I be thinking about Roth conversions? Should I be thinking about some of these more proactive tax strategies to alleviate that risk of the widow's penalty down the road? Because unfortunately, it is going to happen. We don't know which spouse is always going to pass away. Statistically, the husband passes before the wife. but at some point it's going to be an issue. There's a stat that I use a lot that says 80 to 90% of women are going to be solely responsible for their financial situation at some point in their lifetime. Could be divorced, could be widowed, just could be because they're single by choice. But at some point, you're going to have to be responsible for your financial situation. And the more advanced planning you can do, the better off you're ultimately going to be.
All right. So this is our last question from Marion. It's very interesting. She says, I'm 72 and I'm looking for side work to generate some extra income. In that vein, I recently completed a 9-week training course. At the end of the course, attendees were given an opportunity to form an alliance with the course founder to generate leads for sales. The alliance requires paying an annual fee plus a per lead fee. Out of that, I would get brand name affiliation and solid but not guaranteed to buy leads. Do you think I should join or go out on my own with no guarantee of leads, but also no annual or per lead fees?
So I was a little bit hesitant to include this question, but I thought, just thinking out loud, I can't really give a specific recommendation. And Wendy, feel free to chime in if you got any thoughts about this, but I can't necessarily chime in, but since I don't really know what the opportunity, what the business is.
Right.
But number one, I would definitely commend you for going out, finding an opportunity, looking for something. I think the biggest questions I always ask, well, regardless of what the work is, if you're making a decision to work in retirement, and I'm going to go with the assumption that she's retired and she, again, just looking for extra income, is this something that is it a long-term situation or is it a short-term? That would be question one. Number two, is it something that you're passionate about? Is it something that you think you're going to enjoy doing? Because that could dictate a lot of what your success is going to be, especially if you're talking about leads coming in, being provided for you versus you having to go out and find your own leads. The only other thing specific to this particular opportunity would be I would talk to somebody who's either had success or hopefully maybe more than one. Talk to a couple of people that have said, yes, I've gone through it. Here's the way it really works. Try to get some real life input from somebody who's gone through it. That's the only specific recommendation I could give you without really knowing what this opportunity is. But again, I would come back to saying, is this something you think you're going to enjoy? Something you're going to be passionate about? Or is it just sound like a good opportunity to make a decent amount of money in a limited amount of time? Go into it, make sure you're going into it for the right reason. So I don't know, Wendy, you got any other thoughts about this? Again, I was hesitant to put it in there, but I thought, a lot of more people are looking for things to do, like side hustles while they're retired, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that, if it's a sales position, she obviously was prepared to sell. I personally just am always wary of pay up front. I don't really like that system, but that's just my own personal opinion.
Well, and I think it sounds like what more than likely where she's doing it on her own or doing it through this particular organization. It's like it's a numbers game. I remember, so when I first started, I was with American Express Financial Advisors. This was 1999. And we used to drool when the leads would come out. So we would get 30 leads a month from credit card holders that had quote unquote requested information about financial services.
Okay.
So we would get those, and that, when it was dial time, you had your 30 leads and you were trying to get through them and you had your script and everything. So you had to know that, a lot of them, they may have not realized they requested information. They checked something they didn't realize, but there was going to be maybe one or two in those 30 that, really was interested in getting more guidance, maybe meeting with a financial advisor. So I think you got to kind of understand it's going to be a numbers game based on what she's describing. So going into that, if you're comfortable with that idea, I guess it's also, there's going to be some aspect of need. Do you need money, or is it truly just extra income? Because there's a lot of opportunities. I told my son one time, he was asking me, hey, I'd like to start investing and do a little bit more, but I don't feel like I'm making enough. I said, there's always a way to make money. He ended up doing, what is one of the food things? It wasn't
like Grubhub or, something like that.
Yeah. So he ended up doing that for a while, and then he ended up doing Ship. He liked that better, which he definitely, that's one of the areas my son takes after me. So he figured out that if he could go to the same store every time, he could figure out where everything was at. So he would only take orders from Target.
Oh, geez.
So that he could find all the stuff quicker and get them out, and maybe he'll make a little bit more money when he was doing it. So,
oh my goodness.
I think, again, just understanding, truly making sure you know what's involved here. But I would say talk to somebody, talk to 2, 3, 4 people that have had success. Hopefully you can find somebody. I would even ask them, hey, can you refer me to 2 or 3 people that are doing this or making it work? And you have to just hope that they're going to be truthful with it. But that would be my suggestion, is make sure it's something you think you're going to enjoy doing. Talk to a few people that have had success doing it.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Awesome. Well, Wendy, thank you again for helping me get through all these questions. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a family member, share it with friends. For more free resources and episodes, visit us at www.thesimplyRetirementPodcast.com. One more thing I want to throw in at this time. If you're ready to answer the really big questions, the really big retirement questions, how can I coordinate retirement withdrawals and maximize my income? What can I do to lower my tax bill now and in retirement? How can my investments be optimized for retirement? Make sure you visit us at getmysimplyretirementroadmap.com to find out how we can help you get on the right path to the retirement you deserve. Until next time, please remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It is the start of a new journey.
That's it for today's episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast. We hope you found our insights and advice helpful in planning for a fulfilling retirement. Don't forget to take action on what you've learned today. Visit our website at blakewealthmanagement.com to learn more about our firm and review our Simply Retirement Roadmap process to get you on the right path to the retirement you deserve. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to helping you achieve your retirement goals. Remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It is the start of a new journey. So embrace it and make the most of it. Until next time, take care. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security, or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Blake Wealth Management. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Blake Wealth Management or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor, Blake Wealth Management, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.